Spider-Man Last Hunt premieres on January 29th only on LewisFilms. You can watch the official trailer in the description below. Yo, what is going on, you guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, I'm going to be pre-writing MCU Spider-Man 4. This video will contain spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home, so make sure you have watched that before you watch this video. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you do enjoy all types of Spider-Man content, and make sure to hit the bell so you don't miss any of these uploads as soon as they come out. So this fanfiction will be a general overview of what I would like the fourth MCU Spider-Man movie to be. It's going to contain some elements that could be explored in Spider-Man 5 and 6. Also, I really want to home in on the fact this is a new beginning for Spider-Man and Peter Parker. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Pre-writing MCU Spider-Man 4. We start the movie with a quick cut montage of Spider-Man stopping crime in New York. It has been a year since No Way Home and Peter is still living in a worn and torn down apartment with barely any money, and he has a suit that keeps getting damaged. The suit will become more damaged over the montage, and by the end will have stitches and tape all over it. The montage will show him fighting street crime and will showcase references to other street level heroes such as Kate Bishop and Daredevil. We will also be reintroduced to J. Jonah Jameson throughout the montage, talking about how he hates Spider-Man. Peter will return at the end of the montage, all battered and bruised. He seems exhausted. Spider-Man has been fighting crime and keeping to his morals ever so tightly after the end of No Way Home. What Aunt May said to him before her death really sunk in and resonated with Peter. Peter will pick up a letter at his door for overdue bills. Peter will sigh, saying that he'll get round to it, but he can only put it off for so much longer. He is really busy with Spider-Man stuff and college. The next day, Peter will wake up late as he's really exhausted from being Spider-Man. After the year has passed, Peter has managed to retake his end-of-term assessments and able to get into college. Since no one knows who Peter is, he had to retake all of his exams to actually get into college. Peter goes to MIT and gets there late for class. The teacher calls him out for it, and then goes on to talk about their long-term project, and says that Peter will be paired with a kid called Harry. Here we will introduce Harry Osborn nice and early in the story to set up that relationship. Peter will not learn of his last name though. They get talking and Harry is a confident, well-dressed guy compared to Peter's shy nature. Harry is the equivalent of what Flash Thompson was, however Harry is actually nice to Peter. They will get along and that relationship will start to set off here. After class we will get a scene where Peter will leave and see MJ from afar across the corridor. It'll be a slow scene where Peter admires MJ from afar, almost like he did Liz in Spider-Man Homecoming. Peter is still in love with her. This is where we introduce the conflict for the movie. Peter will want to get back with her and have her in his life desperately. However, after what happened with Aunt May, he can't risk having anything like that happen ever again. Peter also thinks back to what Andrew's Spider-Man said about Gwen Stacy, about how she died in harm's way. Peter could never let that happen to anyone else. It's a constant mental struggle with Peter, knowing he has a responsibility but wanting his life back with MJ. Peter has become really broken after the end of No Way Home. No one knows who he is, he's lonely, he has a crap apartment, and gets beaten up by thugs every night. He wants something happy back in his life. We then will get introduced to one of our other key players in this movie in the next scene. In Norman Osborn. Yes, that's right. Where there is Harry Osborn, there is a Norman, and Norman will be the main overarching antagonist of this next trilogy starting here. This Norman will be tamer than Dafoe's Norman, however, that spark of insanity is still there. He'll be on his way up through the ranks, and throughout the past year, Norman has grown Oscorp to a significant player in the tech and science community. Norman's main goal in the MCU is to become the powerfulest and biggest company on the planet, rivaling the likes of Stark Industries. Spider-Man, due to his crime-fighting nature, has become somewhat of a celebrity icon, and Norman wants in on him. Norman has been experimenting with genetics and different tech to create super powerful weapons, which can be sold to the likes of the military, and on the odd occasion to people like the Maggia crime family, which could have reference to someone like Kingpin or Hammerhead making a short cameo here. This would parallel his motives from the Raimi universe, showing that Normans across the multiverse are mostly alike. And this idea that Norman is the same as he was from the Raimi universe will play into big effect in this next trilogy, and I'll explain more about that and that characterization later. Norman wants Spider-Man to test, to prod, and to use to his advantage. He knows Spider-Man would never volunteer himself to Oscorp and research, as Norman has learned that Spider-Man keeps his cards very tight to his chest. No one knows who he is under that mask. Throughout this movie and throughout the trilogy as a whole, Norman will become obsessed with Spider-Man, knowing that he has so much potential to give to Oscorp. Therefore, Norman will hire someone specifically to take down Spider-Man and to bring him in. This is where we are introduced to another antagonist of this movie, Mac Gargan. Mac Gargan is promised one of his mech suits by Norman if he is to take down Spider-Man and bring him in. And Mac, wanting vengeance on Spider-Man after Spider-Man Homecoming, will gladly go along with this. Mac Gargan will be an obstacle more than anything in this movie. I don't really want to set him up as a deep villain with motives rooted in emotional stakes, but rather having as a punching bag for Spider-Man to have some cool fight scenes with. Rather, Norman will be the one that is overarching, emotionally driven for Peter to face, and this idea will be explored more and expanded upon later in the movie. But for now, Scorpion will be the main villain that Spider-Man will have to go up against. Peter will go home that night and will see more about his bills, and will decide that it's time to go and actually get a job. This was the first night in a while where he hasn't had to go out and do Spider-Man stuff. He sees an ad on his phone about J. Jonah Jameson looking for someone who can give him a picture of Spider-Man, as they are so scarce. And yet, Spider-Man is a celebrity icon right now. Anyone with a photo of Spider-Man or a story on Spider-Man is really going to blow up. Peter calls the Daily Bugle up and Betty Brant answers the phone. Compared to No Way Home, J. Jonah Jameson has a full team around him now, Betty Brant being one of those that works for him. Betty puts him on the phone to Jameson. Jameson says that if he has proof that he can get good pictures of the webhead, to come in and show them. Peter says he'll be there tonight. Peter is on his way to the Daily Bugle when the Scorpion starts terrorizing the city, looking for Spider-Man. Peter once again has his luck tied against him and goes off to stop the Scorpion. Here we will have our first big action set piece of the movie and our first interaction between the Scorpion and Spider-Man. The Scorpion will talk to Spider-Man as if he's rageful and vengeful, as if he has his own vendetta against the webhead. At first Peter won't recognize him, but then he'll remember that he stopped him and the Vulture on the ferry. They will fight and Spider-Man won't have fought a foe like this in a while. However, this fight will show how Peter has grown into a Spider-Man that can hold his own, without Stark, without Doctor Strange, without Happy, etc. They fight and Scorpion gets the upper hand on Spider-Man, with the mech suit that Norman has designed. Spider-Man's suit gets more damaged as the mask starts to fall apart as well. Spider-Man will ask Scorpion where he even came from, and Scorpion won't say anything. Then a piece of Scorpion's suit will rip off during the battle, leaving Scorpion vulnerable. He will escape into the night, and Spider-Man will take this piece of suit home with him. We will then get a scene with Peter doing some research into the piece of tech, once again showing his incredible smarts. He will find half a logo on the inside with the letters O and S on it. The rest of the word has been cut off. Peter remembers back to Osborn from No Way Home, and thought it can't be. He doesn't know enough about Scorpion or anything yet to jump to any conclusions, but still fears the worst. Peter thinks to himself that he's just being paranoid. The next day, Peter is back in college and he is with Harry. Harry and himself started to become really good friends. And then in the same scene, Harry confesses to Peter that he actually has a crush on this girl called MJ Watson. Peter becomes really jittery and starts to freak out. Peter realizes that if he wants to make a move, he can't keep deciding whether it's right or not, he just has to go for it. We will then get a few scenes where Peter will interact with MJ. We will get an awkward reintroduction between the two. MJ will say that she recognizes Peter, and Peter will reference the end of No Way Home in the coffee shop. Peter will also notice that MJ is still wearing the same necklace that he bought her in Far From Home. There will be a few more scenes throughout the movie where the two interact over the rest of the movie and their relationship starts to build back up, and this is all because Harry is the catalyst. This will be the start of Peter's learning curve for this movie as he caves into his desires as Peter Parker. I want to reiterate though, this does not mean he regresses from his character in No Way Home, but rather by the end of the movie, you will see the journey and the thought process Peter will go through. Peter knows right now that he will be Spider-Man for the rest of his life, but he has no happiness other than MJ left. So Harry, having a crush on her, will be the catalyst for Peter to make this move. MJ in one of the scenes will tell Peter that she doesn't work at the coffee shop anymore, and this is something interesting to note, because she's actually a reporter for the Daily Bugle, and she got an internship there just like Betty Brant did in No Way Home. I decided to make this decision because in Homecoming, MJ liked sketching people in crisis, almost creating a narrative about what she was seeing. I took this link and then I thought maybe it would be interesting if she was to become a reporter. However, this connection with the Daily Bugle will remind Peter about those photos he was going to hand in to JJ. We will get a scene where Peter goes to the Daily Bugle after being interrupted by the Scorpion fight. JJ will say that he's a bit unreliable, but the photos he took are really good since he was a bit late. Peter took the photos himself on his phone. JJ says that he needs a new camera though. JJ gives him a check for $200, and Peter is on his way out of the Daily Bugle and sees MJ there. They say hi to one another, and this will be the scene where Peter asks MJ out on a date. MJ will say yes. Peter, now feeling happier than ever, takes his check home and then decides he has to use the money to get more resources to repair his suit before anything else, so no one knows that it's Spider-Man. His mask was falling apart in the last Scorpion fight, and he really needs to repair his suit. First the suit, and then the bills. However, once the suit is done, Peter doesn't have any money left to pay the bills, so once again, he has to put them off. We will get a scene with Norman and the Scorpion. Mac will have failed Norman, and this scene will show how intimidating Norman can be. Osborn will threaten Mac, saying that he'll give him one last chance. He'll repair his suit, but if he fails Norman again, there will be consequences. The next day, Harry invites Peter back to his house to work on the projects for college, and Harry talks more about MJ on the way back. Peter is being shy about it, knowing that he's asked her out on a date, but doesn't tell Harry. Harry returns home to the mansion with Peter. Peter is surprised, and Harry says that he doesn't like to talk about how rich he is. Harry confesses something to Peter about how he didn't actually get into MIT, and his dad paid for him to get in. Peter is shocked, but tries to reassure him, saying that he's actually a smart kid. Harry goes on to say that his dad wants to meet him, and then Norman Osborn comes through a set of double doors from the top of the stairs, representing his power that he has over Peter and the city. He says that his name is Norman Osborn as he introduces himself to Peter. Peter instantly freezes. Norman gets talking about how Harry has mentioned a lot about Peter and about how he's really smart and intelligent. Norman says that he's something of a scientist himself. This scene I sort of see being similar to the Vulture scene in Homecoming with Liz Allen. The tension will be high. Peter will realize that the man who killed May exists here, in his world too. His biggest fears are coming to fruition. Norman will ask Peter questions about his job and his life. Norman says that he can offer him a job at his company Oscorp, because Harry has told Norman about how much of a smart kid Peter is. Peter says no, it's okay, he'd want to make it by himself anyway, and that he's a photographer for the Daily Bugle right now. Norman says that it's respectable he wants to make it on his own steam. You can see a lot of the old references to the Raimi Norman Osborn sort of going off that twisted idea that Norman is sort of going down the same path that the Raimi Osborn did, which then psychologically hinders Peter putting this thought that the same thing could happen to other people in his life like MJ that happened to Aunt May. And then Peter will get a notification on his phone. The Scorpion is back at it again. Peter will say he has to leave swiftly after just coming. Norman will squint, knowing that he's just sent the Scorpion out to bring in Spider-Man. Norman thinks to himself that this is a bit of a weird coincidence. Norman says that there's something weird going on with that boy. He says to Harry, I don't suppose you have gone out and found yourself a job? And Harry replies with no sir, showcasing the relationship that is set up between Norman and Harry throughout the trilogy. I'd like to imagine we get a lot more scenes with Norman and Harry in the actual movie, however in this pitch and with the plot that I'm presenting to you, I don't really have time to go through each individual scene. However, you could probably guess what they'd be like. Peter goes off in his new suit and swings into action fighting Scorpion once again. We'll get a more intense fight scene between the two. Spider-Man's new suit will get ripped and torn again to shreds just after having it repaired. The Parker look strikes again. The fight will end with Spider-Man getting the upper hand and having Matt Gargan being sent back to jail and not being able to exact his revenge on Spider-Man. We will get a closing scene of the movie being the date between MJ and Peter. Peter will show up to the date battered and bruised after the Scorpion fight. MJ will ask if he's okay and Peter will say he's fine. He will seem sad and somber. Peter realizes that with having Norman around, it's too dangerous for them two to be together. And this is where Peter's lesson comes to a close, that no matter what, MJ and the ones he loves will always be in harm's way, and he needs to stop the man who killed his aunt not to turn into the monster that he is inevitably going to become. Peter says he's sorry for messing her around, but he can't. She asks him why, and Peter says because he needs to figure some things out with himself first. Peter walks away, almost reminiscent of that scene in Spider-Man 1. We cut to Peter's apartment where he looks at the part that was ripped off Scorpion's suit and realizes that the OS, it stands for Oscorp. Norman is already out to get Spider-Man. He needs to stop him before it's too late. We get a final swing with Spider-Man swinging through the night, with his greatest battle ahead of him yet to come. We get a post-credit scene of one of Norman's research scientists coming across a strange substance. They brought it in for testing. It's the symbiote from the end of No Way Home. Norman says that this is a very interesting discovery and leaves with a big grin on his face. So that's the end of my pitch for MCU Spider-Man 4. If you guys enjoyed it, let me know in the comment section down below, and let me know your thoughts of my pitch for the film. Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit that like button, and make sure to hit that subscribe button to not miss any more fan fictions in the future, and make sure to hit the bell so you can be notified as soon as the videos go up. Spider-Man Last Hunt premieres on January 29th, only on LewisFilms. The trailer is in the description down below if you want to check that out as well. With that being said, thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, and peace.